of ages. What are the tools of ages? So before I left on my recent trip to Africa, I was speaking with the guides, and they gave me a challenge. They told me, find the tools of ages. They will reveal themselves. And I'm thinking, okay, what does this mean? Well, I knew it probably didn't mean a physical, literal tool. I knew it was probably something more esoteric or spiritual in nature. So I went to Africa and just tucked that in the back of my mind during my visit there. And there was a day when we, as a group, went to meet the Maasai tribe. And this tribe of people in the Serengeti area of Tanzania, they live very naturally. They have no running water, no electricity. They use just primitive tools, but those are like physical tools. But yet there's a tribe here they appear very happy, and they live amongst the animals and the land. Even the animals come inside of their mud huts if it's really cold outside. So I'm thinking, this is too easy. This can't be the tools. And if so, how do I apply the primitive tools back into my life? Because my life is, 180 degrees different than their life. So every day I thought about tools of ages, waiting to see that it's going to pop up somewhere. Well, sure enough it did. But it took the 11th hour. Basically, it was one of my last days being there, and it was actually June 11th. So it was the 11/11. There you go, a doorway, a gateway, an opening. And finally, it happened. And it came to me in a dream. So this particular night on June 11th, I had a dream where I woke up within the dream, thus I became lucid. So I'm asleep, but aware that I'm sleeping, and now have the ability to manipulate, to maneuver, to walk through the dreamscape and make it the way I want it to be. So as soon as I became lucid within the dream, I started doing things. But the important point here is that I knew that I was seeking some answers. And one of the things that I really, really wanted to know was, could I right now meet and see the beings who used to come visit me as a child? I had these group of beings, they're called the guardians. I learned that later. And I also had extraterrestrials that we would call the Greys that would visit me at night in my room. And that was really more of a scary experience, but the guardians were so loving, and so I had that experience as well. So in this dream, because I was lucid now, I walked up to the star being, and people kept telling me, that's the Andromeda man, that's the Andromeda man. I went, oh, well, let me go talk to the Andromeda man. I really didn't know much about the Andromeda star system, or even about any beings that were from that place, although I believe that there could be life from that system, solar system. When I walked up to the Andromeda man in the dream, I said, oh, I'm going to ask to meet and see the beings that used to come into my room at night as a child. And what was interesting about and peculiar I found about this Andromeda man, he had these really weird, large eyes, but deeply inset into his skull. Although he looked very human looking, but he had these deep, deep set eyes. And his ears were interesting too. They were slightly smaller and lower on his head, and they looked a little different than ours. So I walk up to him, and I want to ask him privately, and I whisper in his ear, and his ear telescopically comes up to my mouth, and I say to his ear, I want to see and meet the beings that used to come to my room and visit me as a child. And he doesn't say anything back to me, but he shakes his head, and I feel like, okay, maybe something's going to happen here. Well, what happens is, just when I think nothing's going to happen now, along comes two spaceships, two crafts that look like typical flying saucers. They fly down, and both zoom past me, and then when the second one goes by me, it transforms into a butterfly and touches me. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to have an opportunity to time travel with them, and I'm going to be able to visit with them. So the dream goes on, and I end up doing a few different things. I was still lucid in the dream, and so I wanted to go be with the spirit guides, and I wanted to work with channeling them, and we did that. And then I wanted to meet with a deceased friend of mine who was a mentor, and I met with her, and then finally the dream ended. But what's interesting, when the dream ended and I woke up for real in my bed, I could have sworn in front of me I saw these large 8 to 9 foot tall beings. Definitely looked like the Greys, but a lot taller, and they were around my bed. And I rubbed my eyes, and they wouldn't go away. And I kept thinking, oh, no, 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 no. And they wouldn't go away. But I wasn't afraid. I was like, wow, this is wonderful if this is really happening. And then I thought, oh, it's probably just the mosquito netting that I have around my bed that makes it look like that. So I went back to sleep. And when I went back to sleep, I became lucid again. And in the dream, I told myself, I said, oh, that's the tools. It's using your dream state. I need to work with meditation, dreaming, and other altered states of consciousness to be able to access the tools of ages. So when I woke up, I immediately wrote this dream down. It was a very powerful, impactful dream. And in it, I had the answers to what the guides had set out for me before I went on my journey to Africa. So when I come back, they talked to me further about the tools of ages. They said, what are the tools of ages? And I listed them off, and I discussed with them. I said, well, I believe it's using the faculty of your imagination. It's such a powerful center that we have within us, that we believe that imagination means fake, not real, pretend, made up. We're contrary. They reminded me in the discourse we had during this session that who's ever existed here, and for that matter, any type of life that's humanoid-like, also has the ability to access this faculty of the imagination. And through accessing this faculty, this is how we truly can time travel. This is how we can truly meet up with other lives that we know are out there, but we haven't yet been able to maybe make contact. This is how we journey into other dimensions and spaces and realities and realms. So it's not that the imagination is fake. The imagination is very, very real. Children know this, and it's something that is inherent within every single one of us. So the tools of ages is, number one, being able to access and use the imagination and realize it's not this internal made-up thing, that it truly is a huge part and connected to our ability to be here in the physical form. And it's that part that allows us to go into altered states of consciousness and awareness, such as the dream state, which the imagination is what feeds it. And to be able to go into meditation. Again, it's the imagination that's there hand in hand with the meditative state and any other altered states such as hypnosis. So we need to begin to understand that the imagination truly is a tool that we've been using. We've been using all of these ages, and it's what connects me to the tribes or the people of antiquity and to primitive life. And so they said, now you saw in Africa, you saw primitive tools and primitive lives. You live with extravagant tools and lifestyle. They said, now make the ancient tools fit this time, fit your time. And so the connection we have with any being that has ever lived, we all have the ability to use this faculty to maneuver into other realms, other dimensions, and it's all through this ability, which I can't say resides just in the mind or resides in the brain. I think it resides at our source in our spirit. And it's what we've been given to be able to connect with other consciousness, other sentient beings, and definitely other dimensions. So, given that, what has your experience been with the imagination, using your imagination to be able to reach into other realms? And what's your experience of becoming lucid in dreams? And have you been able to connect or maneuver through a dream and be able to do and say and experience what it is you'd like to do? I think it's such a powerful tool, a powerful gift, and interesting enough, it's what allowed me to find the answer that the guides had tasked me with. Not only could I could not just find the answer by theoretically thinking about it, I had to actually literally experience it. And after all, when we experience such things, we never tend to forget. Well, thank you for listening today. This was Creative Visions TV, and I'm Karen Dahlman. Thank you.